Guys, this is a huge positive development for crypto. BIS, or Bank of International Settlement, now permits banks to hold 2% of reserves, specifically 2% of Tier 1 capital in cryptocurrency as per the latest policy report named Prudential Treatment of Crypto Asset Exposure published this month. And this is the report that I'm talking about that was published just a few days before. So effective January 1, 2025, this policy will govern defining and handling of crypto assets. The policy includes Bitcoin in its definition of Group 2 crypto assets. Let's look at that definition. So the report says under the standard, banks are required to classify crypto assets on an ongoing basis into two groups. Group 1 crypto assets, this includes tokenized traditional assets and crypto assets with effective stabilization mechanism. Group 1 crypto assets are subject to capital requirements based on the risk weights of underlying exposures as set out in the existing Basel framework. And Group 2 crypto assets, this is the class under which Bitcoins are included. So those that fail to meet any of the classification conditions of Group 1, they are under the Group 2. As a result, these Group 2 pose additional and higher risk compared to Group 1 crypto assets and consequently are subject to a newly prescribed conservative capital treatment. Alright, and here on the exposure numbers, Group 2 exposure limit. So a bank's total exposure to Group 2 crypto asset must not exceed 2% of the bank's Tier 1 capital. So this is the most important. 2% of Tier 1 capital, up to this number it's allowed, and should generally be lower than 1%. Banks breaching the 1% limit will apply the more conservative Group 2B capital treatment to the amount by which the limit is exceeded. Breaching the 2% limit, okay, so this is kind of interesting. Banks can even breach 2% limit, but in that case there is just a higher penalty for the capital. So breaching the 2% limit will result in the whole of Group 2 exposures being subject to Group 2B capital treatment. And in other parts of this report, they have detailed all the classification condition for both Group 1 and Group 2. So this is important. Group 2 crypto asset consists of Group 2A and Group 2B. So these are the Group 2 crypto assets, which are those crypto assets that fail to meet the classification conditions set out under section 60.8 to 60.19. That is Group 2 which have failed, the group which are not Group 1. So crypto assets under the Group 2A, that including tokenized traditional assets, stablecoins and unbaked crypto assets that fail to meet the classification conditions but pass the Group 2A hedging recognition criteria. And under the Group 2B, all other crypto assets, that is tokenized traditional assets, stablecoins and unbaked crypto assets that fail to meet the classification conditions and fail the Group 2A hedging recognition criteria as well. And if you are interested, you can definitely go through these details of the classification, all these section that is under starting from section 60.8 up to 60.19. So there's really detailed definition of the classification criteria. So those were the details from the report. Now, the Bank of International Settlement previously considered back in June 2022 a policy of 1% for global banks. That is, they proposed global banks should be allowed to hold up to 1% of their capital reserve in crypto assets. In turn, what happened is the banks requested a 5% reserve limit. So these 2% that they are proposing currently in December 2022 report appears to be a compromise between those two numbers. According to the data from 2020, if applied to all banks in the world who collectively custody approximately $180 trillion, this would amount to a limit of 3.6 trillion in Bitcoin held by these global banks. This number is huge. And all these classification conditions that the BIS committee have set out is about ensuring the crypto asset passes two kind of risk. One is redemption risk test and another one is basis risk test. So the redemption risk test is to ensure that the reserve assets are sufficient to enable the crypto assets to be redeemable at all times. And the basis risk test aims to ensure that the holder of a crypto asset can sell it in the market for an amount that closely tracks the peak value of the crypto asset. So overall, how bullish is this new game-changing rule is for mainstream crypto adoption? Well, the suggested rule changes are in keeping with the regulator's cautious approach to crypto regulation so far. While it is largely conservative, it is still highly bullish for the mainstream adoption of Bitcoin and other crypto assets because it is coming from BIS. The rule means that banks have regulatory clarity on gaining crypto exposure when it goes into effect in 2025 in all BIS jurisdictions. However, apart the BCBS statements, the cap percentage has not been finalized. That is this 2%. It is not really an absolute final number, and it may be reviewed up or down in both ways. That pretty much wraps up this video. If you liked it, do smash the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.